When I got my very first smoke around 10 years ago, the first thing that I made were country style ribs. They were so tender and extremely flavorful. I finished them in a South Carolina mustard style barbecue sauce, which I think I'm gonna do again, and I'm also gonna try my other favorite barbecue sauce. Now, while these aren't technically ribs, country style ribs are inexpensive and they're all meat. There's no bones in there. So let's start off by making that rub. Sound good? Let's smoke. I'm going to start off by doing the exact same Southwest rub I did on my country ribs 10 years ago. I've got 3 tablespoons of coarse salt, 1.5 tablespoons of light brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 2 teaspoons of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of crushed coriander seeds. You could also just use ground coriander here. 1.5 tablespoons of garlic granules, 1.5 tablespoons of onion granules. Next, 2 teaspoons of dry oregano, 1.5 tablespoons of paprika, and 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper. Grab a spoon, fork, or whisk, whatever you've got. Mix it together until it is completely combined and where there are no chunks in it. This looks fantastic. We're just going to briefly set this to the side. Now it's time to get outside to preheat my smoker. I'm going to load up the hopper with some apple wood chips. You could also use pecan, oak, hickory, mesquite, or cherry. Now I'm going up to 225 degrees Fahrenheit. And then let's bring out our pork. I have about 7 pounds of country style ribs. Now, country style ribs are just a cut of pork where the blade end of the pork loin meets the pork shoulder, and you get this beautiful piece of boneless pork. Now, occasionally you will see these bone in like this. This is just the pork shoulder blade, and when the butcher cuts it on a bandsaw, this is just in there. Now, you can ask the butcher to remove these. I think boneless is better, although I know a lot of people like that bone in when smoking and grilling. You get a little bit more flavor, maybe a little bit more juiciness. Totally up to you there. These are also sometimes known as pork shoulder steaks. Now, they're a little bit different from the pork steaks in my St. Louis barbecue video. Those are really thin. These are nice and thick. Now, you may see some labeled boneless country ribs, and they're real small like this. This is just that blade end of the pork loin, but there's a lot of intermuscular fat on there. These are very flavorful. This just doesn't include the pork shoulder. Now, when you're purchasing from a butcher shop or the grocery store, what you're looking for are thickness and color. Each of these boneless ones weigh in between 8 ounces and a full pound. So they're nice, big, thick pieces. The other thing is color. Make sure they're nice and pink. You do not want any gray on there. That means they've been sitting for a little bit. Now, if you don't plan to cook these for a few days, one of my favorite chefs showed me a great trick. Just apply a thin layer of oil to coat it completely. This will stop oxidation. Oxidation stops discoloration, which is exactly what you want here. All right, what we want to do now is put a little mustard on these, use it as a binder to get that nice spice rub on them. So what we're going to do is add on about a 1/4 cup total of yellow mustard, then rub it in really well on all sides. This is going to act as a binder that's going to help our rub stick to our pork as it smokes. Once they are completely covered, grab that spice rub and let's generously sprinkle it all over. And I always like to be about a foot high off of what I'm seasoning so that it covers every little square centimeter of surface area of our pork. Now, you're going to use about a 1/3 cup to a 1/2 cup. Remember, this is about 7 total pounds of pork, and it needs to be delicious. Rub it in, press it in, make sure they are completely coated. Now, because these aren't extremely thick, there's no reason to put this rub on and let them sit. Now, if they were another 1 to 2 inches thicker, I'd say totally fine to do it. You'd want to put this rub on, let it sit for 24 hours before you smoked it. That just gives that rub time to penetrate down to the center so that every bite is absolutely delicious. But we are good to go now, so let's get outside to that smoker. We're at 225 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to place the country style ribs down right on the grates, about 1 inch apart from one another. This is plenty of space for smoke to creep through, smoke up our ribs, and exit out the chimney stack. Now I'm going to plug in the thermometer, and I want to stick it into one of the thicker country ribs right in the center. We are going to smoke this for about 3 to 4 hours or until it reaches 175 degrees Fahrenheit internally. Look, I'm sure a lot of you don't even have a smoker but still want to make this. No problem. The same temperatures that are in the smoker are the same temperatures that are going to be in your oven. Do not change a thing, except put these country style ribs on a rack on a sheet tray. I do not recommend putting them straight on the rack in the oven. You're going to have a mess in the bottom of the oven. All right, we got a little more time to smoke these up. It's been about 2 hours. I want to show you what they look like all throughout the process. The pork country ribs will start to tighten up a little bit, and you'll also notice the coloration, getting that nice pink and red on there. However, we've still got some more time. One of the awesome things about a pellet smoker is the environment inside is crazy moist. But if you're doing this on an offset, you may notice that the meat starts to dry out a little bit on the outside. And what you want to do is hit it with a little spritzer. Mine is a simple combination of 1 cup of apple juice, 1 cup of cider vinegar, and 1 cup of water, just equal parts into a spray bottle. Just give it a quick few sprays on whatever you're doing once you notice that it starts to get dry, all the way until we finish up these country style ribs. All right, we're getting closer. Here's what they look like after another hour. So 3 hours total of smoking, tightening up more, really nice colors, starting to caramelize a little bit. Now, you know what they say, if you're looking, you ain't cooking, but I do want to show you how they look throughout this entire smoke period. We're almost there. The ribs are at 165 degrees Fahrenheit internally. We've kind of hit that stall. They've been sitting at this temperature for a little bit. What I like to do, especially on pellet grills, is push through that stall, get more smoke flavor incorporated into these until they reach about 175. But what we're going to do at this point is we need to make a couple of barbecue sauces. Like I said in the beginning, my original recipe did a mustard barbecue sauce. I've got a great recipe for that. You can check that out. For the other one, here's what I like to do. No matter what kind of barbecue sauce you do, I take that and then I cut it with apple cider vinegar, apple juice, and water. I add it to a pot, and then I put in some butter. Now, you've seen me do this in my ribs video, in my pork shoulder video. It's the same exact process. There's just so much flavor in there. All right, we're gonna wait a little bit more. Once they're 175, we're pulling them off. We've pushed through the stall. We're at that coveted 175 that I was looking for. They look fantastic, nice and caramelized, great color. You can see the rub still on there. We want to braise these though. So to do that, let's remove the thermometer out of that big country rib. We're going to take all of the ribs off, set them to the side on a sheet tray lined with parchment paper or a platter, whatever you've got. Then what I'm going to do is transfer all of the boneless country ribs into a 13x9 disposable pan just like this. You could use a regular pan as well, no problem. For these, I'm going to add on my regular barbecue sauce that's been cut with the apple cider vinegar, the apple juice, water, and butter. We want to pour enough of the barbecue sauce in there until it meets about halfway up on the ribs. This is about 2.5 to 3 cups. And for the remaining bone-in country ribs and those little blade and pork loin country style ribs, we're going to add these to a separate 13x9 disposable pan, just like this. We're going to top off with that mustard sauce, same exact amount until it reaches the halfway point of the ribs, or about 2.5 to 3 cups. We want to completely cover them with foil, make sure it's nice and tightly wrapped. Going back out to the smoker on that top rack, we're going to crank the heat up a little bit to 250 degrees Fahrenheit this time, and pull back the foil on one of those pans. Stick a thermometer in the thickest country rib you can see. We still want to get some accurate temperatures on here. This is going to take about another hour to 2 hours. We want to get it until it reaches 200 degrees Fahrenheit. At this stage, these ribs are actually done. I'm going to take it a step further though. This next part is optional. I'm going to remove the pans from the smoker, burst up the heat to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it's there, I'm going to take the country ribs right out of our braising barbecue sauces and place them on that top rack. I just want to get some more caramelization of the barbecue sauce incorporated into the ribs. I'm only doing this for 15 minutes. That is it. Does not need to be more than that. After that time, we're going to come back and you can see that the barbecue sauce has really adhered to the country ribs. They look just so good. I can't wait to get into these. And you may be wondering, why do they even call these country style ribs? They're not ribs at all. Well, back in the 70s and 80s, butchers were trying to market this blade end of the pork loin because it seemed to be unpopular because people thought, oh, that's fatty, it may not be good. Well, now we know fat equals flavor, and it's absolutely delicious, and there's a lot of intermuscular fat on that blade end of the pork loin. So the butchers cut that off, split it down, into this steaky cut of pork that really resembled a rib with a bone in, and they called it country style ribs. And guess what? You change the name of something and immediately it flies off the shelf. Go figure. Well, now they're done, and I'm going to show you how I plate them up. I'm just going to stack them on a sheet tray that's got some parchment paper and generously pour on any extra barbecue sauce. You can do the exact same thing with the mustard barbecue sauce version. Come on, let's go. This brought back so many awesome memories to the first time smoking these on my very first smoker. The flavor's incredible. It smells so good in here. I think you and your family are really gonna like this. They're extra meaty, no bones, super easy to do, and smoke in way less time. Now, if you do like this, definitely check out my smoked brisket. That thing is amazing. I've got a great recipe video. See you on there.